Today is very special as we have access to the transverse passageway behind the Osirion at the temple of Seti at Abydos. Normally this is filled with water and unable to get into, and so this is something that happens very rarely, and it's very special. As we enter through the reeds, very symbolic, we come into the beginning part of the transverse tunnel, and we see this beautiful, majestic scene of the god Nun triumphantly raising the solar boat out of the primordial ocean. The ram-headed figure is actually the sun god, who has been replaced by the scarab Keferi, which is the morning sun. Nun lifts the solar disk towards the sky goddess Nut, and she receives the sun with outstretched arms. She stands on the head of a male figure who is bent in a circle, and this figure is called Osiris, who encircles the underworld. And as we're looking at this, the Book of the Gates is the ideal guidebook for the soul, for the initiate, and symbolized by the sun itself as moving through the dark passages of the underworld to actually resurrect, ascend, and become one with itself on a higher level. The evil serpent called Apep always seeks to block the passage of the solar boat. So at midnight, the boat must reach the court of Osiris, where the heart is weighed to become as light as a feather. On the eastern wall of the transverse passage, we see what happens to the soul if it is not as light as the feather. It looks a bit like Dante's Inferno, with many, many, many surreal objects and figures. We have people who have been burned, beheaded. It shows the sufferings of the dead who have displeased the gods in this lifetime, and their heart is not as light as a feather. This is what happens to us when we become slaves to desire, to greed, to all of the things that eat our soul. And the Egyptians depicted this in many ways in Valley of the Kings and in the Book of the Dead. However, here we're seeing it as two options. We get to see almost, if you would call it, the right-hand path or the left-hand path. And what we're seeing is choice. What happens to the soul who does not make the right choices? In the solar boat of the sun god, we see the goddess Isis, followed by Geb, the earth god, Shu, the god of air and moisture, and Heka, the god of magic. We know that the soul is being helped and guided through the underworld. We know that there are many, many trials and tribulations awaiting the soul, but at the end, always at the end, is the light. We see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we know that there is much, much more to come. This is a way of uplifting and a way of passing through the dark night of the soul. It's a way that the initiate came into knowing that there is only one light, and that light is the inner light of the soul, transformed into the next level of being. This is what has become known as the Book of the Coming Forth into the Light, which is the true meaning of the Egyptian Book of the Dead.